Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Mendez, and today my audience will be Frank.
Hi.
Daisy.
Hi.
And Susana.
Hello.
During today's presentation, I will be discussing law enforcement's use of excessive force. This is a very prevalent issue in today's society due to information rapidly spreading through news media and social media. Law enforcement's use of excessive force has brought to light the need for proper training and use of guidelines and regulations, improved relations between community and law enforcement, and the need for recruitment of younger generations through tougher evaluations and race-gender ratios. The term excessive force has no absolute definition. When researched, it was found that force is generally considered excessive only when the force used is determined to be greater than what a sensible, practical law enforcement officer would apply under the circumstances. Excessive force should only be used in the amount necessary to mitigate an incident, make an arrest, or protect themselves and others from harm. This brings us to the history of law enforcement and their uses of excessive force. Law enforcement's use of excessive force has been around since the beginning of policing. Policing began in the 1800s and has continued to evolve and progress to keep up with society's needs. Originally, police were community volunteers, so it was more of a community watch than an actual police force. At the time, there were no qualifications needed to enter into the policing, which brought many issues. These police were not very effective in executing their jobs as they were oftentimes drunk or asleep on the job. During the late 1800s, police began carrying firearms prior to it becoming standard policy in order to instill fear in the eyes of the community. The men controlling societies, such as politicians and elites, used law enforcement for their own personal gains through the use of excessive force. These municipal police departments were monetarily driven. At the dawn of the 20th century, police were acting less in the interest of the general public and more so as the enforcement arm of organized crime. The Prohibition brought to light the need for reform of police departments through investigative commissions, which led to the creation of proper training, procedures, and regulations and guidelines. Today, there is a need for further reform of training and stricter guidelines and regulations. Current training methods include target practice, defensive tactics classes, which train the officers in less forceful techniques such as defensive training, use of batons, pepper spray, and tasers. They also train with video and audio-visual stimulation scenarios played by actors, and train in the Hogan's Alley course, which provide officers with fully developed urban environments to place the officers in real-life scenarios where use of force would be applied. In light of the current training methods, the critical decision-making model should be applied to every scenario as a means to reduce the number of events where the use of excessive force is applied. The critical decision-making model states that an officer should collect information, assess the situation for threats and risks, considering police powers and agency policies, identifying options and determining the best course of action, and acting, reviewing, and reassessing the situation. With the increase in mental illness cases, there needs to be an implementation of proper training skills in order to better handle these types of cases. The training for these cases should include the following: proper techniques on how to communicate, techniques on how to apprehend crisis intervention teams, which were knowledgeable in handling cases of mental illness and would be more equipped to handle cases of mental illness. The case of Laval Hall is a perfect example of how the justice system and law enforcement failed when it comes to dealing with individuals with mental illness disorders. Laval Hall was a 25-year-old schizophrenic man who was shot by Officer Edo Termino. The incident was captured through a dash cam in the officer's police car. Hall's mother called the police as her son was outside waving a broomstick. When officers arrived at the scene, Hall was clearly agitated. In order to apprehend Hall, Termino attempted to taser Hall. Hall then got up and attempted to lunge at Termino. At that point, Termino asked Hall repeatedly to get on the ground. Then he shot Hall 5 times. This could and should have been prevented had the officer had proper training in dealing with suspects of mental illness. Community relations are just as important as training and guidelines. Relationship between law enforcement and the community are essential to reducing the number of events where excessive force is applied. One of the major contributors to community relations is the Community Relations Services. The CRS is a corporation that is a subsection of the United States Department of Justice. Its primary focus is to provide assistance and information on how to communicate with communities in an effort to reduce the use of excessive force, and to set clear definitions of limits and trust-building skills. The CRS gives us examples of how to improve community relations through keeping open communications with the public, setting up community pillars to work with law enforcement and inform on occurring incidents, and through a properly informed community, there is a less probability of riots, negative responses from the public, and erroneous perceptions towards law enforcement. This map of the CRS shows the region serviced by the CRS as well as where their field offices are located. As we can see, they only have 14 offices throughout the United States. There needs to be more offices set up nationwide in order to continue to assist police departments and citizens of the community to reduce the number of events where the use of excessive force has been applied. Community policing is one of the key factors that needs to be implemented in order to improve community and law enforcement relations, as well as reduce the number of events that end in the use of excessive force. According to the National Institute for Justice, community policing leads to improved safety for all sides involved, boosts in positive neighborhood and police morale and confidence, improved relations, and a decrease in criminal activities and fear of crime. Another key point to enhancing community relations is the information provided by the media and how it is perceived by the public. The types of media that play a role are news media, entertainment media, and social media. The news is very influential to its viewers. Therefore, whatever they choose to report on influences the public's perception of that topic. The stories that the news choose to report are typically a one-sided view of the incident and are intended to reach a specific demographic. The coverage of these stories enhance the public's perception of social issues, particularly law enforcement's use of excessive force. In order to solve some of these issues related to public perception, the news outlets could hold off on reporting on such events until law enforcement has had the chance to make their first statement. This would reduce the level of mistrust and communication between the community and law enforcement, as the community would feel better informed. It would also help changing public perception of law enforcement, in turn building stronger community relations, leading to lesser crime. Another contributing factor to public's perception of law enforcement's use of excessive force and the criminal justice system is entertainment media. Shows like NCIS, CIS, and Law and Order taint the public's perception as they believe what they are watching reflects reality. These crime dramas also depict many civil liberties of suspects being violated without any ramifications for the law enforcement officers breaking the law. The Bureau of Labor Statistics conducted a study that determined Americans ages 15 and up watch an average of 2.8 hours of entertainment TV per day, and Pew People in the Press determined that Americans spend an estimated 52 minutes on average watching TV news. This means Americans are watching twice as much entertainment TV than they are news TV. This chart provides information gathered from 3 particular shows regarding how often police use of force and misconduct occurs during air. Technology is constantly evolving and advancing. As such, the public now has any information at the tip of their fingers. Some of the advancements include the camera phone, which now allows anyone to record any incident at any time. The first incident where law enforcement's use of excessive force was brought to light and became a media frenzy was the case of Rodney King. This incident occurred in 1991 and was filmed by a nearby citizen with their handheld camcorder. This video showed 4 police officers using unnecessary excessive force to apprehend King after a high-speed chase. At the time of the King incident, there was still no existence of social media. Through advancements in technology came the discovery of social media. Social media outlets include Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thanks to technology and camera phones, many incidents of police use of excessive force have been recorded and uploaded. Incidents like Eric Garner and Philando Castile captured the attention of the public as their videos went viral on social media. Social media is one of the largest contributors to public perception of law enforcement and their use of excessive force. These isolated incidents that have been recorded and posted on social media have only heightened the tensions between law enforcement and the public. These incidents also give the public the perception that incidents of excessive force are occurring more frequently than they really are. According to a report by the Washington Post, it states that in 2016, 963 people were shot and killed by law enforcement, where in 2017, 987 people were killed. There is a slight increase, and although this may seem like a large number, to put it into perspective, in 2016, the total number of people living in the United States was 323.1 million people. Thanks to the advancement in technology in recent years, police departments have been able to introduce body-worn cameras. These cameras record both audio and visual and are worn on the officer's person while on duty. These cameras are worn either on their chest, collar, shoulder, or mounted on a helmet or glasses. These cameras are used to hold law enforcement and citizens accountable for their actions during altercations. According to a study conducted by the University of Cambridge, it reduced the number of incidents of use of force by 50%, and it reduced the number of citizen complaints. Many court rulings in high-profile cases that involve the use of excessive force have given the public the right to believe that justice is not being served, the law enforcement are not being held fully accountable for their actions, and that police officers are being sentenced to the minimum required for their crimes, 4 to 6 years. There needs to be a higher level of accountability and harsher sentencing for these officers. Philando Castile was a victim of police use of excessive force. Castile was 32 years old when he was shot and killed during a traffic stop by Officer Geronimo Yanez. Castile's death was captured by police car dash camera and Castile's girlfriend, who recorded the incident on Facebook Live. Castile was pulled over under the pretenses that he looked like a suspect of a robbery that occurred a few days earlier. Yanez requested Castile provide him with his proof of insurance and registration, to which he complied. Castile advised Yanez he had a gun in the car, and as Castile went to reach for his identification, Yanez shot Castile 5 times. Yanez was charged with second-degree manslaughter and 2 felony counts for intentionally discharging a gun, and was acquitted of all charges. Racial profiling is something that occurs every day. Racial profiling can occur anywhere and at any time. The public's perception of racial profiling is detrimental to building trust between law enforcement and its community. Much of the perception of racial profiling comes from individuals that live in urban communities. This is due to the fact that the majority of the population living in urban communities is made up of minorities. As a matter of fact, when officers are on duty, they should carry out their duties without any consideration for race, gender, ethnicity, religion, sexual orientation, gender identity, and national origin. One of the largest misconceptions of racial profiling occurs during traffic stops. Minorities feel as though they are being pulled over because of their race, when in reality there may be an array of other reasons for the stop. For example, if there's an area of high crime rates, there will be more law enforcement in the area, therefore a higher probability of stopping a person of minority. The person being stopped may resemble a suspect of another crime, like in the case of Philando Castile. Or it may be something as simple as a seatbelt violation. Much of the perception of racial profiling is directly related to demographic and not so much by actual proof of racial profiling. This chart provides information on data collected by Reason and Roop. The results show that demographic affect the perception of use of force by law enforcement and if the use of lethal force is being relied on too quickly. The numbers on perception of law enforcement's use of force could dramatically be reduced by recruiting younger generations. This could be beneficial because they can bring a different, fresh perspective to the police force. The younger generations are more in tune with contemporary social issues like that of use of excessive force. However, there are many challenges to recruiting younger generations. Some of the challenges are that they are unable to meet the requirements. The general requirements are a clean criminal record, little to no drug use, good physical health, and financial stability. Increased drug use and debt presents a major problem. A study conducted by Rand Center on Quality Policing states that about half of 12th graders have used marijuana or other illicit drugs, as well as the debt crisis reported from 1992 to 2001 showed an increase of 104% in credit card debt amongst individuals of 18 to 24 years of age. Psychological testing is another recruitment requirement to join the police force. They use this testing in order to weed out applicants that exhibit emotional or mental disorder. According to Recruitment and Selection of Police Officers, the physical psychological testing includes educational history, recent illegal substance use, financial difficulties, reason for wanting to work in public safety, and psychologically relevant medical history, amongst others. Psychological testing is not only important during the entry phase, but should also be continued throughout the lifespan of an officer. While on the job, many officers will experience incidents of murder, rape, and other violent crimes. This can lead to the officer feeling distressed and lacking the proper judgment needed when dealing with situations. The continued psychological testing of officers would help in reducing the number of events where excessive use of force was applied. The assurance that officers are constantly being evaluated and cleared for the line of duty gives the public a better perception of law enforcement. Part of America's core lies in its racial and gender diversity. With the number of racial diversities in the United States, many police officers lack the understanding of customs and morals. Therefore, introducing a greater racial diversity within law enforcement would improve the relations between the public and law enforcement, which would in turn reduce the number of incidents where the use of excessive force would be applied. Along with racial diversity, gender diversity is just as important. Studies have proven that due to a woman's maternal and compassionate nature, she is more likely to use methods of lesser force such as verbal communication to de-escalate a situation rather than turning to excessive force. Women are also reducing the number of costs associated with civil liberty lawsuits against police departments. Throughout this presentation, we have explored the overall perception of law enforcement's use of excessive force, how it can be significantly improved through proper training, revision of regulations and guidelines, community outreach programs, community policing, body-worn cameras, improved media and law enforcement communications, holding law enforcement legally accountable for their actions, and race and gender diversity within the police department. Thank you all for watching today.